Understanding mercantilism, a detailed exploration. Mercantilism was a significant economic system that dominated global trade from the 16th to the 18th century. Characterized by strict government regulation of the economy and prioritization of national interests, mercantilism played a crucial role in shaping the economic landscape of Europe and its colonies during this period. Key features of mercantilism. Mercantilism was built on specific principles and characteristics that underscored its influence over trade and economy. 1. The belief in static wealth. A foundational belief of mercantilism was the idea that wealth is finite and limited. Precious metals, particularly gold and silver, were perceived as the keystones of national wealth. Nations aimed to maximize their holdings of these resources, often at the expense of other countries. 2. Favoring exports over imports. Mercantilist policies prioritized the establishment of a favorable balance of trade. Governments incentivized exports, goods sold to other countries, while imposing tariffs or restrictions on imports to minimize the outflow of gold and silver. This trade surplus was seen as essential for a nation's economic health. 3. Protective economic strategies. To bolster domestic industry, mercantilism often manifested in protectionist measures, such as tariffs, quotas, and even military interventions. By protecting local markets from foreign competition, nations sought to secure economic dominance. 4. Colonization and resource control. Colonies became vital under mercantilism as sources of raw materials and markets for manufactured goods. European powers established colonies to ensure a controlled supply chain, thus retaining wealth within their own borders. 5. The importance of population. Mercantilism emphasized the necessity of a large population to support industry and military power. A bigger workforce contributed to both commerce and the size of armed forces, which were crucial for protecting trade routes and securing national interests. Historical development of mercantilism. Emergence in Europe. Mercantilism first took root in Europe during the 1500s, replacing the feudal economic system. Nations like England and France adopted mercantilist policies that encouraged domestic industries while restricting foreign imports. For instance, fiscal initiatives in England discouraged colonists from purchasing foreign products. Legislation like the Sugar Act of 1764 and the Navigation Act of 1651 aimed to control colonial trade for the benefit of the British economy. Jean-Baptiste Colbert and French mercantilism. Jean-Baptiste Colbert, a French economist and Controller General of Finance, was an influential advocate for mercantilism. He advocated for policies that protected the French monarchy's economic interests against rising mercantile classes, particularly from the Netherlands. Colbert's strategies included enhancing naval power and fostering domestic industries, though, ultimately, his methods faced challenges as free market ideas gained ground. Mercantilism in British colonies. Within the British Empire, colonists experienced the effects of mercantilism firsthand. The system imposed numerous trade restrictions that limited the growth and autonomy of colonial businesses. It also heavily relied on the African slave trade, as plantations in the colonies produced goods that were crucial for trade among empires. The struggle between mercantilist policies and colonial interests culminated in significant discontent, leading up to events like the Boston Tea Party and eventually, the American Revolutionary War. Mercantilism versus other economic theories. Mercantilism and imperialism. While mercantilism sought a favorable balance of trade through regulation and protection, imperialism went further. Imperialism involved military and political dominance over other territories to exploit resources and control trade networks. In many ways, mercantilism laid the groundwork for the expansionist policies of imperialism. Mercantilism versus capitalism. Capitalism emerged as a response to the restrictions of mercantilism. Unlike mercantilism, which features extensive government intervention in economic activities, capitalism promotes free markets where individuals and businesses operate with minimal state interference. Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations provided the philosophical underpinning for capitalism, advocating for trade freedom and competition as paths to economic prosperity. Legacy of mercantilism. Despite its decline in favor of free trade and capitalist models in many parts of the world, mercantilism's legacy persists. Certain governments today still exhibit mercantilist tendencies, particularly those seeking to control trade balances and domestic industries through tariffs and subsidies. Contemporary examples. Countries like China and Russia continue to incorporate elements of mercantilism into their economic policies. The trade tensions between the U.S. and China, particularly under recent administrations, have also revived discussions about protectionist measures reminiscent of mercantilist practices. Conclusion. Mercantilism significantly shaped early modern economies and contributed to the rise of powerful nation-states. By prioritizing national wealth through exports, colonization, and restrictive trade practices, mercantilism facilitated economic development and geopolitical dominance during an era of exploration and colonial expansion. While considered outdated by contemporary standards, the principles of mercantilism remain relevant as nations navigate complex global trade relationships. Understanding this economic system sheds light on the historical foundations of modern economic practices and ongoing debates about trade policies today.